Get ready for the NBA shakeup, because we are diving straight into the Philadelphia 76ers. We are breaking down 5 crucial trade ideas to move on from Joel Embiid and Paul George this summer. We look at exactly how the team can reshape its future, analyzing the financial chains and the roster moves needed to find a path forward.
Tired of dropping your phone or struggling to hold it with one hand? The PopSocket's Pop Grip gives you a secure grip, works as a phone stand, and even lets you swap the top for a fresh new look. Simple, useful, and perfect for everyday phone use. Click the link in the comments to grab yours on Amazon.
Next up, we examine the front office strategy in a perfect scenario, where the Philadelphia 76ers begin to gauge the trade market on both Joel Embiid and Paul George, while simultaneously building a roster centered around Tyrese Maxey and Edgecombe. We explore what President of Basketball Operations Daryl Morey stressed at the trade deadline and the difficult reality of moving off that massive owed salary. We also look at the performance metrics from the recent action, specifically focusing on Paul George's performance, noting that he held onto just 7 points in the 76ers Game 4 loss. We analyze what this performance tells us about the sustainability of his role and the path forward for the franchise. Finally, we tackle the tough reality of the situation, looking at the 3 essential offseason moves the Philadelphia 76ers have to make after another postseason crashout. We discuss why moving on from Joel Embiid and Paul George is necessary, the roadblocks involved, and what the future truly looks like for the Sixers. The Philadelphia 76ers are facing a critical juncture following a disappointing end to their 2025-26 NBA playoff run, highlighted by a 30-point loss to the New York Knicks. This defeat has intensified internal discussions about necessary changes, suggesting a potential shift away from current leadership and a concerted effort to move on from expensive, underperforming veterans Joel Embiid and Paul George. Analysts suggest that retaining Tyrese Maxey and Edgecombe as franchise faces is paramount while addressing the financial and on-court drag posed by Embiid, particularly his attitude. To achieve this necessary overhaul, the organization must be prepared to trade valuable assets to break free from the financial commitments tied to these stars, prioritizing long-term organizational health. The situation surrounding Paul George is particularly financially significant, with him reportedly owed nearly $111 million over the next 2 seasons if he exercises his player option. Given his age and limited recent game action, he is considered potentially more tradable. One proposed trade involves sending George to the Chicago Bulls for Patrick Williams, a move that would free up significant cap space for the 76ers and provide a solid bench piece for the team, though it necessitates surrendering a future first-round draft pick. Other trade avenues for George include involving Andrew Wiggins, potentially trading him to the Miami Heat for George, contingent on Wiggins entering his final contract year. Alternatively, the 76ers could pursue Nikola Jovic in a deal, again requiring the sacrifice of a draft selection. A more ambitious move involves exploring interest from the New Orleans Pelicans for George in exchange for Jordan Poole and Herb Jones, aiming to acquire a better bench scorer and defensive rotation player. For Joel Embiid, the challenge is greater due to his substantial contract, reportedly valued at $186 million over the next 3 seasons. Moving Embiid would require taking on another undesirable contract, with Anthony Davis being mentioned as a potential trade piece. While Embiid may be receptive to a move, the complexity suggests the team might need to leverage future first-round picks to facilitate a deal. Another potential option involves trading Embiid to the Washington Wizards, capitalizing on his current health status and contract length. Finally, the report suggests the 76ers could consider acquiring Zach LaVine from the Sacramento Kings for a 1-year deal, assuming LaVine opts into his player option. This move would require trading a 2029 draft pick to secure the transaction. These proposed moves are framed as necessary steps to gain immediate cap flexibility and establish a more sustainable future for the Philadelphia 76ers. Philadelphia 76ers front office is reportedly weighing several strategic options concerning their roster and trade market. In an ideal scenario, the organization is considering gauging the trade market for key players like Embiid and George, while simultaneously building a new roster centered around Maxey and Edgecombe. However, a major hurdle remains. Philadelphia's willingness to include draft capital is crucial for moving off the substantial $300 million in owed salary. This financial constraint makes offloading veteran contracts challenging. This approach contrasts with the stance taken by President of Basketball Operations Daryl Morey during the February trade deadline, who emphasized the team's core strength, stating, "We have some as close to untouchable players as you might have in this league in Tyrese and Joel and VJ, Paul. We like our core." The ongoing deliberation suggests a complex balancing act between pursuing significant roster upgrades and managing the team's considerable financial commitments. The Philadelphia 76ers suffered a loss in Game 4, with Paul George holding a total of 7 points during the contest. The game took place on May 11, 2026, according to recent NBA news reports. This development is being tracked by fantasy basketball communities and sports analysts as the team navigates the playoff intensity. The Philadelphia 76ers face a critical juncture in the offseason, needing to implement significant roster changes following a recent postseason disappointment. Analysts suggest the franchise is severely hampered by expensive contracts for Joel Embiid and Paul George, coupled with a lack of overall team depth and consistency. The situation is described as being beyond cooked from a roster-building perspective. While there is an ambition to secure a championship, the financial commitments associated with Embiid's contract, including a substantial player option, are viewed as a major liability. Experts advise against recommitting to Joel Embiid or investing further capital in him, emphasizing that the team's success is not solely dependent on him, even acknowledging his impact in recent comeback victories. Regarding Paul George, the analysis points to the sustainability of his high salary, especially considering his recent suspension and ramp-up period. Due to the team's limited cap flexibility, shedding George may require trading real assets, such as draft capital, rather than a straightforward trade for another player. However, the suggestion is to prioritize rebuilding through the draft if immediate trades are not feasible. The path forward involves a multifaceted strategy. If trading for George or Embiid proves unviable, the team must focus on addressing roster depth issues by utilizing draft picks to acquire cheaper bench players. The team is projected to lose several rotation players to free agency, necessitating speculative additions to fill those gaps. Ultimately, the consensus suggests avoiding high-stakes, win-now trades. The focus should shift towards a gradual rebuild, using incoming draft capital to eventually navigate away from the current expensive contract situation. There is no immediate plan for blockbuster trades involving either star, suggesting that the future of the 76ers lies in patient development rather than immediate, high-cost fixes.